What's up guys, Julie here, this is FrameAmbition, and today I'm going to tell you 5 ways to move to a new country. So first things first, if you're into travel vlogs and model diaries and that sort of thing, that's what my channel is about, so hit subscribe and hit the notification button. So a little background, I am originally from Kenya and that's where I was born and raised. When I was 18 years old, I moved away to South Africa to go to university in the city of Port Elizabeth. I have just graduated a few months ago and since then hightailed it to Cape Town, where I am now. You can see like a little preview of Table Mountain back there. Yeah, so I'm now spending a few months here, and thus so far I have lived in 3 cities and probably many more as time goes on. So I'm going to tell you some different ways that you can do that too if you're kind of sick of where you're living, or you just want to try something new, or there's a place that's always fascinated you and you'd like to see what it would be like to try it out for a few months or years or permanently. This is how you can do it. So I'm going to start with number 1, studying. The reason that I start with this is, of course, I've done it, so that's the one I know the most, but I really believe that's the easiest way to move to a new country or to start making a move, even if you'd like to be a permanent resident after that, in terms of it having the least amount of resistance and the most amount of support. Whether it's bureaucracy with visas and things like that, and just general information, you're just likely to be more supported. And so this can be full-term university, like I did my entire degree in Port Elizabeth. It can also be exchange programs, whether you're enrolled in a university wherever you are. It could be short courses. I remember when I was quite young, getting out of high school and thinking what I wanted to do for a short time, maybe in Europe or something. There are things like art courses, writing courses that are just for a summer or just for a winter, so it's a few months away. And I'll also say you don't necessarily have to be straight out of high school going into university. This can be for a master's or a postgraduate degree. Sometimes it's actually better because you're more likely to find funding and scholarships and bursaries and things like that, and even more support when you're going for further, it's all further education, but when you're going for postgraduate education. And also it's easier in a lot of countries to find work afterwards or to apply for permanent residency if you really would like to be in that country. This is of course if you're moving countries and not cities. A lot of countries have things put in place for people who have studied there and of course contributed to the economy or to the institutions there, and they make it very easy for you to now find a job afterwards because you've spent all this time, you're in with the culture, and so it should be no problem for you to go and work there. So study abroad. Number 2 is to be a digital nomad. What this means is somebody who works independently or remotely from usually their computer. So if they'll do whatever kind of work they do from wherever they like, from home or from somewhere else, and they communicate with their colleagues or their boss or whoever via email, Skype calls, and everything over the internet. So they can live and work virtually anywhere they like. This can really be applied to almost any job. People who are writers, lawyers, all types of consultants, social media managers, photographers, travel agents, call center agents, all these types of things. There are a lot of companies that are expanding and starting to hire remotely, and there are a lot of people going into their own business as entrepreneurs and working location independently. Everybody's on the internet, everybody's easily reachable wherever they are in the world. You really don't need to confine yourself to an office or to a town if you don't want to. The pros are you decide your own schedule. If you really feel like you work better at night, which I do, then you can do that. If you feel like you want to work in the day and start your days at 1 p.m, you can do that as long as you get your work done by your deadlines. What's also cool is you can explore in between your work when you're in a new place. So a lot of the time if I was somewhere new and I still had work to do, I would try and work in the morning and then go out in the afternoon, for example. And there's a growing community of digital nomads. So there are a lot of co-working spaces, places where you can kind of rent a desk and go and sit, and you have a working type space. So you're not just in bed in your pajamas, you're out with other people exchanging ideas if they happen to be in the same industry, for example, or in linked industries. And that's a really nice way to work sort of independently, but not be a recluse if you're not really someone who wants to work totally by yourself. Cons. You decide your own schedule and it's on you to keep that schedule. If you're late to start working, there's nobody to report to, so you have to have a certain amount of discipline to actually get this shit done. And another con is figuring out space to work. I have mentioned co-working spaces, but you might not be in an area where there are any. A lot of it is Wi-Fi or technology dependent. If you don't have dependable internet to communicate with your colleagues, if you have some issues, especially traveling, if you lose your devices or you have any damages, that sort of thing can be really a pain, and like it can really set you back. So number 2 is to be a digital nomad, and that way you can live wherever you like, or you can travel long term if that's how you want to move to new countries. Number 3 is a work exchange, or in my case, a work stay. This has been my saving grace and the way that I'm able to survive these few months in Cape Town, because what I'm doing is working part-time in hostels in exchange for board, so for a room or a place to stay. This is not necessarily the only way to go about it. There are many different types of arrangements, but what I've been doing is working on either social media or the guest entertainment side of a hostel's business, and I get a free room and sometimes free meals. It depends. I've worked in a few different ones. So what you're really doing is you're exchanging your skills for accommodation, sometimes food, and many other things. The way that I found out about this sort of thing is actually just being at hostels and finding people who maybe would cook for the staff and get a free room. Okay, so we have to take a quick break and make a costume change because my camera battery died, but we're back. So we were talking about work stay. The pros of that is that you get to move to a new country and you live rent-free, so that's one less concern and one less huge expense of moving to a new place. Cons is there is less freedom. It's not quite like traveling long-term because you've saved. You have a commitment. The standard agreement, from what I can tell, is 5 hours a day of work, 5 days a week, and that's in exchange for board, so a room in a staff house or a staff dorm, and sometimes meals, but not always. That is specifically for hostels, but you can do this on farms, you can do this in sort of small-scale construction, like eco-building. I see a lot of those sorts of things. People who are interested in permaculture, you can maybe help out in somebody's small business and have a room there, that kind of thing. But of course you do have to commit to giving your time to them, so I don't have my full day to myself. And also it's very easy to get taken advantage of. I've read stories of places where they don't stick to the 5 hours a day rule, or they get like really substandard accommodation, or they just get overworked, for example. It's very hard to know that it's going to be like that until you're there. So my advice for that is to go on a website like Workaway, or go by word of mouth. If you know somebody who has worked somewhere, ask them specific things that you need to know. For example, what are the hours for real? How is it working under them? Is communication good? How is the housing? Was it suitable? That kind of thing. Because people really can get taken advantage of in those situations. But other than that, a work exchange is an amazing way to have free housing, sometimes in a great area. For me, in 2 amazing parts of Cape Town that I could never afford on irregular freelancing. A lot of the time also is 3 months, so you really get the feel of living in that city. And if you do want to stay longer, sometimes it turns into permanent work as well, and then now you have help trying to get a work visa in that you have a job offer. So that's something to consider, work exchange. Next is getting a working holiday visa. So this is something that a lot of Americans and British people and lots of Europeans will know about Australia and New Zealand. So what happens is 2 countries or various countries have agreements with each other where a citizen of one of those countries can get a working holiday visa, which is usually 3 months. A 3-month visa for them to be able to go into that country and find casual employment within those 3 months, which will enable them to actually get paid money to then be able to travel. So a lot of people will go and find casual work, maybe for half their time, and then the second half of their time there, maybe 1 month, then they'll travel around the country. So like I said, a lot of Americans, Canadians, British people will go to Australia and New Zealand because they have that agreement. South African citizens have an agreement with Brazil. So you guys, what are you doing? You can be going to Brazil and spending 3 months actually working and getting paid. As far as I know, Kenyans don't have an agreement with anybody. Kenyan citizens, we're left out of this one, and probably the bulk of Africa and Asia. But a working holiday visa is it's a legit work permit, so you can work for actual money, unlike a work exchange where you're working for accommodation and food. And so that money can now get put into more traveling or into your savings or whatever, and you get to live in a new country, of course. So the pros of this are you can get actual work legally, and that just makes things a lot easier, even though it's short term. Cons of a working holiday visa, there's no guarantee that you'll find work. It's like any other sort of job search. You never know whether you're going to get hired or not. All you can do is apply and hope for the best. Hope that your qualifications are enough and that you've timed it well and everything like that. And so that can be a bit stressful. But working holiday visas, look up what agreements your country might have with other countries, if any, and that might be a good option for you to spend a few months in a new country. And finally, what I'm going to call a professional exchange, a transfer, which is a lot of people actually get transferred within their jobs, and as much as it's made to sound sometimes like, oh, I'm being moved for my job, you can go and find out if you work in a big multinational type of company, maybe you work for like the UN or, I don't know, Coca-Cola or something. Go and find out if they have openings in different countries and just apply for that. You're already hired by the company, so you're in good standing with them, hopefully. It's a much easier process for them to send you over somewhere than to hire somebody new, in some cases, not always. Also, I'm going to add in here fellowships, mostly in creative and research type fields. So very much like postgraduate study. These are sort of like funded learnerships sort of thing. I've met a lot of people who will be in different places because of artist residencies, so they're a resident artist at a certain gallery in a different country, and they just go there. They've got gallery space and working space for them to continue their art, and they often have free accommodation for that as well, or at least it's subsidized. So that's one of the pros. A lot of costs are funded or covered for you. This might be visas again, or accommodation, and a lot of other things, maybe even just like spending, just general spending. Cons, I have no idea. I'm going to need you to comment down below if you find any cons in exchange or professional transfers within companies or outside. So that is pretty much it for my 5 ways to move to a new country. If you've got any other suggestions, please comment down below. If you have any experience with any of these, please tell me your experiences in the comments. Feel free to email me as well. My contacts and all my social media in the description. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time. Bye. Stay golden.